We are in the midst of a short series of hopeful places in the Galilean ministry of Jesus. But what strikes me in this place of the wheatfield in Luke 6 is the timing. Here in the wheatfield, it is about knowing the moments, what is at stake, when the hope of the gospel is there and it is offered and just waiting to be taken up. The wheatfield is about knowing the moments that you are in. If you've been watching the curling in the Winter Olympics in the last few days, you will have experienced moments full of possibility and tension. And we celebrate the Scottish curlers winning gold earlier this morning. If you stayed up for that, well done. You're still here. You made it as well. Fantastic. Good work. And on a more serious note, to look across Europe and look at what is taking shape in Ukraine is to recognize again a moment of huge decisions. Here in the wheatfield, there are also moments where you know everything could change because of the possibilities offered in the wheatfields. What is offered here in the wheatfield is a way of Jesus, a way that offers hope to the person and hope to each one of us. The joy of the wheatfield is that Jesus sees the person and lifts them up. I don't get close to wheatfields very often. I've always kind of assumed that the wheat stalks grew up, are harvested, cooked, and then you eat them. But in Galilee, there is also a moment, a short window of about 2 or 3 weeks when the wheat is green and the heads are full of protein, and you can pick them, you can roll them in your hands and eat them raw. There's a special sort of snack called a farake, I probably pronounced that very wrong, which means rubbed, and it's made in Galilee with the green wheat that looks like risotto almost and looks delicious. But the green heads of wheat are only there for a short time before they're too dry and they need to be cooked. So this moment in the wheat field can only take place within a short window, a couple of weeks in April. And these disciples know the time as they come through the wheat fields. They pick some heads of wheat, they rub them in their hands as they're passing, and they eat them. And it seems almost idyllic, doesn't it? Especially after the week that we've had with the storms and weather and all the rest. So just imagine yourself in that Galilean countryside, the Sea of Galilee just spreading out down below you, and you're walking through this wheat field and just picking up the heads and taking the green wheats and enjoying it. It's idyllic, isn't it? Are you there? Are you in that moment in there? This is a joyful thing to do, but not today. What is a normal, joyful, relaxed act in this small window of opportunity in April becomes a moment of big decisions in the wheat field. This is Sabbath, and Jesus and his disciples are doing this on the Sabbath. And for some who are standing around watching, this is a failure of faith by Jesus and those following him. The act is seen as one of harvesting on a day that is committed to worshiping God. And the question comes, what you're doing is unlawful. Why are you doing what is unlawful in the Sabbath? And it is Jesus' answer to this question that makes the moment in the wheat field one of choosing which way you will go. Will the wheat field be a place of hope or a turning away? How then does Jesus answer? Well, first of all, there's a story and a statement. Jesus loves stories, and he tells a lot of stories. And he refers back to one in the Old Testament, back in 1 Samuel. He says, Jesus answered them, have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God, took some consecrated bread, and he ate what is lawful only for priests to eat, and he gave some to his companions. Jesus is speaking of events in 1 Samuel 21, where David he's running from King Saul. He's in fear of his life with a small group of men, and they're hungry, tired. David comes to a temple just outside Jerusalem, and the priest overrides the normal practice of the bread of the temple only being available to priests. Here is a moment when the person in front of the priest matters more than the following of what is always done. It's the humanity of the moment that Jesus is pointing to. And this is the first answering that Jesus gives to the Pharisees, to see the person who is before you first. Later in Luke, Jesus sees Zacchaeus. Remember Zacchaeus up a tree and everybody's walking past him. But Jesus sees him, notices him, calls him down and says, I will have dinner with you tonight, Zacchaeus. When all others are passing by, Jesus sees him, knows him, names him, and sits with him. We're over in John 4, where Jesus is tired. He's sitting down at the well in Sychar. And this Samaritan woman with her past that marks her, separates her from others. She is at the well. Jesus speaks with her, knows her, offers her new life. And she goes back to the village and says, he knows me. Could this be the Messiah? Jesus keeps seeing the person. If you caught up with my Bothy Text video podcast on Wednesday, I'm not going to ask you to put up your hands. Some of you might have seen it. And if you did, you will have seen this new sculpture out at Currangar Loop of a child who's high up in the sky with her arms raised up, sort of embracing Glasgow as they look out over Glasgow. It's a trace of the hope that remains from COP26. And there was a short film on STV shown yesterday called City of Hope, which speaks to people in Glasgow about hope and draws on that sculpture at Currangar Loop. And among some of the fascinating conversations with people and remaking communities in Glasgow, which involved even things like, I don't know if you noticed this, or jeans pinned up to a wall, and you fill them with soil and you put flowers in them. What a fantastic wee idea. That's one I'm just throwing out there, Alicia, for you, for the Orchard team as well. So there are things that we can do to bring a wee bit of hope. But amongst a whole bundle of creative thoughts around hope, at the heart of it was a call to see the person. I spoke of Jimmy Reed's description of the high-rise flats in Glasgow as like filing cabinets in the sky to point to the loss when we lose sight of the person who is before us. And in Luke 6, the Pharisees who bring the criticism, they've lost sight of the people who are in front of them. They don't see the disciples hungry before them. They see rule breakers, rules not of God's making, but of their making. Jesus, through the story of David, calls them to look to the person who is in front of them, to see the person who is in front of them. Then comes this statement. This defines the moment and offers the possibility. This is where knowing the moment matters. Do you say yes or no to the statement? The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. In Mark's Gospel, when these events are being spoken of, the link between the story and the statement is made clear. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And because of that, the Son of Man, that is Jesus, is Lord even of the Sabbath. And you can see the flow of that argument. But Luke intends us to hear what Jesus is challenging us to. This isn't about simply an argument of the Sabbath and whose interpretation is right. This is about a whole way of being, a whole way of living. And for Luke, the story that Jesus speaks of David points to a way of addressing the people around you, of seeing the person. Jesus keeps seeing the person, the people around him, and responding them to where they are, who they are. The person is always seen. Even in the cross, when Jesus is being crucified, even that thief on the cross is seen in his person and offered life. Jesus offers life to each one of us. He sees who we are. He sees who we are and offers life. In chapter 10 of Luke's Gospel, there is the parable of the Good Samaritan. And one of the lessons is the way that the Samaritan sees the person who is lying broken and hurt at the side of the road. He'll see all the details that make him an Israelite, but he will see the person who is before him. Jesus speaks this parable to model how we are to face each other and look to each other. When Luke places the statement of lordship of Jesus straight after the story of David, he is driving home the point that Jesus is Lord not only of the Sabbath, but of life. He is the authority to declare his disciples are honoring the meaning of Sabbath and what they do because of who he is. It seemed a bit complicated there, the way I put that, doesn't it? How does that bear upon us? I think, first of all, it means that when I come to Jesus, I'm seen. Not through rules or regulations or the structures that others place in me, but I am seen. I've always loved that word in Job when he is at the depths of his experiences of loss, of suffering. And yet he says this in Job 19, he says, I know that my Redeemer lives and that in the end He will stand on the earth, and after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I and not another, and my heart yearns within me. And in Jesus, our Redeemer, we are already seen and known in our hunger, in our needs, who we are is already cared for and seen. And that moment of hope that is offered in the wheat field is so that his disciples know this. Rather than those who are on the edge and looking in, seeing only rules, the moment of hope is to step into the wheat fields when the wheat is green and take up what is offered, the Lordship of Jesus, the one who sees you and cares for you. But also in that moment, there is a call upon us that we will see the person who is around us. To follow the way of Jesus is both to know that we are seen by God and to see others. It is to come again to embrace the word love God and love your neighbor as yourselves. The hope that is offered in the wheat field in these moments is to embrace this call for you and for others, to know this moment for all its possibility and hope, to know the moment that you're in, to embrace the Lordship of Jesus. May we pray.